It's news from heaven. Dying and entering the spiritual world is like moving from a village into a great city. Do we do the village thing anymore? Moving from a town into the city? Either way, we're going to the city here today, and it should be that whatever we find out about the difference between the afterlife and the life here makes a difference to the inner life that we have now, because this reality that we're headed towards should be something that calms us, comforts us, and is a way to push back on all the negative stuff. Because Swedenborg says everything harmful has to have a companion in some falsity. So everything that's hurting you is somehow lying to you, which is causing the hurt. So let's clear that up, and let's get a framework that promotes the kind of life you think we should have as human beings, like happy, joyous, and free. This is from Last Judgment 27. You can download the book yourself for free and follow along. Should be a link down in the description. Since everyone who is going to be born, we're on number 27, since everyone who is going to be born from now on is also going to enter the spiritual world, right? Because what do they say? Father Time is undefeated. Clearly, that world is so extraordinary in both size and nature that this physical world, where people live on various planets, cannot be compared to it. Yeah, people just live on various planets. It is true that when you hear religiously, spiritually kind of stuff, there's heaven and everybody goes to an afterlife after they die, you just can't help but think of something that's a little bit goody-good or stale or static or lame in some way. There's just some image of that wants to assert itself. You never think of it as bustling and dynamic as what we have here, and as real as what we have here. So to think about, though, the feel of going from a really, let's say, we're in a small, rural, peaceful and great area, but then to get into a city, into the downtown core of a major metro, and to feel that, wow, there's a lot going on here, that there's something in that transition that's the vibe that we get when we go from this whole physical world to the spiritual world. I'm already hearing alarm bells going off of people I don't like living in this city. I don't want to live in this city. It doesn't mean everyone lives in the city there. It just means it's real and it's big. And this is something that you don't really think about as well. Everybody is there. Everybody is there. Think of your favorite celebrities. They're there. Think of all the people that you hear about ancient Egypt, or people in, they're just discovered some new fossil in some part of sub-Saharan Africa, which says this is where modern humans originated from. All the people that lived around that time, everybody's there. And you think about the immensity of what's going on there. I mean, that's kind of cool. This follows from the vast multitude of people who have made the transition into the spiritual world since creation first occurred, and who are now all there at once. All there at once. That's what I'm getting at. Plato could be hanging out with Barnum and Bailey, as well as from the constant increase still to come as a result of humankind entering from now on. You think about where it's going. There's always going to be a limit to how many people are here, but that thing builds and builds and builds. This without end, as was shown in the earlier chapter, the reproduction of humankind on Earth will never cease. Really, go up there, check it out for yourself. It's a free download of this book. Several times, when my eyes have been opened, I have been granted glimpses of the vast multitude of people there already. So many that they could scarcely be numbered, myriad upon myriad, and this in just one section of one region. So you've got the whole spiritual world, and even if you divide that up into 4, it's not a flat map like that, but we're talking about states. And then just one little province down in here of something. Swedenborg is saying, look, you would not believe how much life there is there. How many must there be then in all the rest? You see, the people there are all gathered into communities, and there are a great many communities. And here we start to get into the organization of how is the spiritual world, by the laws that operate in that world, sorting out all these different hearts and minds. Each community is in its own place and contributes to form 3 heavens and 3 hells beneath them. You may have heard Swedenborg's concept of 3 heavens and 3 hells, but you may have this sense of this very large, can I write on this side over here, this very large thing, again, that's, okay, there's 3 heavens up here, there's 3 hells down here, and, if we say, these are the sort of helly areas here, these are the sort of heavenly areas there. Okay, well, if I come in here in the middle, then I go up here, and it's all around for a million miles in every direction, it's this heaven. Or I go down here, and it's just hell after hell after. It's actually all integrated. So watch this description here. This means that one kind of people lives in the heights there, another in the middle elevations, another below them, another in the lowest regions or hells underneath. Somewhat the way people in this world live in cities, people in the higher regions there live near each other, up to hundreds of thousands together. So what we're getting here is that, let's say there was some part somewhere in the spiritual world, that there actually is, let's say there's a mountain, right? And then there's some kind of like fissure here, and there's cave systems underneath, right? Right in this one rock formation, spiritual rock formation, you have all the different heavens and hells close to each other. So you have, let's say up here, you have the heavenly heaven, or the angels that are most open to God, where you have the divine basically beaming directly in. There's just barely any atmosphere in between. And then you have the spiritual angels here, who are maybe even more advanced in the types of learning that they have, and so they're somehow getting these rays or diffusing down here. And then you have maybe a big community here of people who Swedenborg would sometimes call natural angels, and they are living great lives in harmony, but often looking up, like, hey, the people up the mountain, they have this wisdom. So you go, just like we now can kind of like call on angels, like, would you help me out with this thing that I'm dealing with right now? I'm trying to do a show called News from Heaven. I don't think I'm drawing a very good mountain. I don't know if I'm explaining anything right. Can you give me some good ideas? Thanks. That sort of stuff. That dynamic continues in a way. Even though they're just right up there, distance is based on state, so it's different. You can't just like drive your car up there. So there's still this progression up. And then right down here, you have the people who are living in more falsity and evil, who are not shoved into this cave, but because you're living in falsity and evil, you don't like light, because spiritual light is not just light, it's truth. And if you want to justify harming people, you don't want the truth. You shy away from the reality, so you're more comfortable here. So those people are comfortable there. But then you get down lower, and there's some people who are in a worse state of mind, and then there's people who are in the worst state of mind. And it's all here because all of these groups are the either understanding and love or the misunderstanding and hatred around a single something, a single part of life, whatever that is. You get the full spectrum here. And then in the neighborhood over, it's the same thing again and again. That is a lot more dynamic than this picture right here. Yep. Therefore, given the sheer quantity of human inhabitants there, clearly this physical world, where people live on various planets, you know how we live on various planets, cannot be compared to it. When someone from this earthly world crosses over into the spiritual world, here we go, I told you, it is like moving from a village to a great city. And Swedenborg had a place in the village and a place in the city. He was here in this world and in London in this world for a lot of this writing. So if not all of it, I don't know. How would I know? Nobody knows. It was not that he was not acquainted with the numbers of people that were bustling around the world then. Sure, it's gotten more now. But he was saying, look, getting to this level, there's so much going on. And as you see in my diagram, there's all over here, there's all kinds of living situations. It's not that everyone is so densely packed in. It's just that there are so many of these configurations. Some of them, would have a ton of people in them. Some maybe only a few, but all of them fully balanced as a unit of life, that the divine is pulling people into this so that they can hold the right equilibrium, so that those of us on earth who are interfacing with whatever ruling love, whatever part of life this is here, we can access the negative and the positive around it, make our choice, and maybe end up ourselves one day in one of these places, whichever one we want, we can get to. In quality as well, the spiritual world is beyond comparison with this world. So what does that mean? Less manufacturing defects? This becomes clear from the fact that all the things that exist in the physical world are found in the spiritual world as well. But in addition, there are countless other things there, things that have never been seen and could never be seen here. And this is not that there are just approximately all the things that exist in the physical world are found in the spiritual world. It might actually be literal, because Swedenborg gives this fascinating account of traveling through London, and he does it at Stockholm at one point, in the spiritual world. He says that there are equivalent spiritual cities to the physical cities, and I would imagine it's the same with towns and maybe even individual houses. I don't know how close it gets. It seems at times like there are even the same, similar streets. And so could it be that there's actually everything physical that's around here, there's some spiritual equivalent to? That's its own whole conversation, because there's certainly, like, if I imagine heaven, so like I remember I had a fish tank, and the fish in it die sometimes. It's they don't live forever anyway, but it's hard to keep them alive and happy and healthy. And I would definitely experience grief about that. And I would talk with my wife, and we would just, like, it's kind of a joke, say, yeah, well, they're in your little pond in heaven, right? And isn't there something when this happens in movies all the time, that you get to heaven and these things that you felt like you lost are there? What if it was even the spiritual equivalent of your special teddy bear that wore out too much, or you lost, or something? How much of, not that we're trying to get too attached to the physical world, and there's all these other better things there, but there's something deeply satisfying to me about the idea that it's all there. It's all there. Once my sister, when she was really little, was getting concerned about the leaves changing in the fall. She was, because they were falling off and dying. And I said, it's okay, they're going to be back again. They'll be back again. And she was like, the same shape. Which to me, just like, I get sentimental about stuff like that. But she's like, is it going to come back? And isn't that what nature is? Is this constant, it's it's lost, but it's the replenishment too, that you do get the same things back again. That every winter, back into spring, the life comes back, and it's always changing, but it's also a lot staying the same. It's this combination of the two. As I said, this is a whole other conversation. We're on a tangent. How did we get there? How did this happen? Because it's not just spiritual things. I mean, physical things are replicated there in some sense, but also countless other things there. Things that have never been seen and could never be seen here. So this, categorically, you couldn't 3D print something like this. This is something that is essentially spiritual. So not only is there just so many more people, there's so much more stuff. There's so many more possibilities. So that's exciting. This is because all the spiritual things in that world are embodied in their own unique way in a form that appears to be earthly, meaning it's got a shape, meaning it's static to an extent. It is an object, and these forms are infinitely varied. The cause underlying this fact, in turn, is that what is spiritual is so much more exquisite than what is earthly, and that very little of it can be brought forth to our earthly senses, since our earthly senses cannot take in even 1,000th of what the spiritual mind takes in. Yet everything that happens in the spiritual mind is presented to spirits in visible form. Swedenborg is awfully fond of saying the things that to us seem like one single thing, to spirits are actually this whole group of a bajillion different things. And that's sort of counterintuitive. He says, like, there can be, a bazillion angelic thoughts within a single human thought. And you might think, well, no, it shouldn't be the other way around, that it would take so many of our thoughts together to go up to be angelic. But think about the way that the body is, and that, you move your hand, and it just looks like, oh yeah, there's 5 things that are going in different directions. But if you look one level deeper, Swedenborg talks about the importance of levels, one level deeper, how many muscles and bones and things are actually moving there? How much more complexity is there in that motion if you say that that's like the spiritual level? But then to get to the celestial or heavenly level, you think about all the cells in there. What is it? It's probably billions of cells, trillions of cells in there. Who knows if I'm way off with my scale. But that there's so much in there when you really see it. And then in the spiritual world, you actually get all that stuff is visible and understood, so that adds to the fullness of everything. This is why there's no way to describe how wonderful and stunning the spiritual world is. These characteristics are intensified, too, as the number of people in the heavens grows, since everything seen there is presented in forms corresponding to the states of each individual's love and faith and consequent intelligence and wisdom. Why are there so many people? Why would God, if God is making people, okay, I'll give you that premise, why you got to make so many of us? Doesn't that just complicate things for everybody? And I'm not even just talking about the world has got like a bit of a challenge with how do we sustain all these people on this planet, but I'm talking also about how do people affect each other? Aren't there certain people in the world that seem to be making my life either directly or indirectly through the systems they set up more difficult? Aren't I doing that to other people? Do we make each other's life less manageable? Would it be easier to have a harmonious, happy everyone if there were only like a couple 100,000 people in the world? What if there was only 1,000? And just everybody, if you've ever been to like a camp or something where there's just not that many people, what if there's only a few hundred people and you just like knew everybody and loved everybody, but there's enough people that you didn't kind of get lost in the shuffle? Wouldn't that be better? I mean, it would not be as good for me if I wasn't in it, but why is God so insistent on just pouring so many people into this? Well, here it's saying because every person makes it better. It's not just God is like, I gotta have as many fish as I can in my fish tank. Every one of us makes it better. Every single person makes it better. When you're getting your negative flack from your head, here's something to remember. You absolutely, by definition, have the potential, and probably already are. You have written into you the destiny to make life better, that you can contribute in a particular way. The divine love and wisdom that's coming into you and can only be received by you in this very particular way. This is the only way the rest of the human race will get access to what's in you. Is through you. So you are making life better. And look what he says here. These characteristics are intensified as the number of people in the heavens grows, since everything seen there is presented in forms corresponding to the states of each individual's love and faith and consequent intelligence and wisdom. That's those light beams I just drew coming out. That all this stuff, all these myriad little dots, there are those in your thinking and feeling, and you can contribute that. You almost like a new technology that only you can bring. And heaven is better the more people are in it. That's awesome. That has to be true. If that is not true, then God has no strategic planning training. And it's just, just put people in, not worried about the consequences. No, the fact that we're all here is intentional and good. And actually, if we weren't all here, if the number of people that had ever existed was cut in half or by a factor of 100, life would be worse, actually. Yeah. All this may serve... Oh, no, wait. I didn't even get there. So the variety of things there is constantly increasing in proportion to the increase of population. There, that says it well. The stuff that's possible gets better as more people bring it in. I mean, you can see this in the way people's creativity here can develop, art and technology and all these things. This is why people who have been raised into heaven say they have seen and heard there what no eye has ever seen and no ear has ever heard. All this may serve to show that by nature the spiritual world is such that the physical world cannot compare to it. No offense to the physical world, it serves actually a purpose that the spiritual world cannot. This is why we are here in the first place. It lays the groundwork for a conscious being to form their spirit. And even after we leave it, like the whole spiritual world is dependent on a healthy functioning human race in the physical world. We're not saying it's not good. I'm just saying, don't worry. We don't have to be here forever. For more on the nature of that world, hey, check out Heaven and Hell, where it deals with heaven's two kingdoms, heaven's communities, representations and appearances in heaven, and the wisdom of heaven's angels. But even there, only a few features are described. Download this book, Heaven and Hell, for free. Go check it out yourself. But just remember, the takeaway is dying and entering the spiritual world is like moving from a village to a great city, and the city gets better with you in it. And that's the news from heaven. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that it gives you something to inspire you, and a hopeful future, which inspires the present, and a thought of like, how can we make that unique contribution? Let me know in the comments, what did this do for you? What are you doing with it? How are you potentially helping the human race? And this is part of why I say leave comments, because by definition, let's say there is some kind of truth in this message here that Swedenborg is communicating to us, that he's saying he got from God, right? Let's say there's truth in that. I'm thinking about it in my particular way, and I'm talking to you guys about it. Each one of you, because you have your own love and wisdom, is going to be able to understand some aspect of that truth, if we really got a truth out there, in a way that nobody else is. So when you make your contribution in the comments, you are like a prism illuminating areas on that. We each individually, on the micro level, we can make this one truth better and better. The more people are trying to live into it and explain it. How could that not be good? Leave a comment, and we'll hopefully have a good chat. All right, guys, take it easy.